Story 1. It has been clear for a long time that he is a bad person with many secrets. The interesting part is seeing the political system finally choose to acknowledge this. Story 2. The Epstein scandal is significant. However, the fact that many people have known for years what kind of dishonest, perverted, mentally depraved misanthrope Donald Trump is, and he still was elected president, is something that is difficult for many Europeans to understand. Moreover, it is not something we would want to accept. Story 3. Yes, it is about justice for the victims and protecting the children. It is actually one thing most of us agree on, and that should say something. Story 4. The Epstein scandal is a very big deal. It shows the rest of the world how wealthy American people are above the law. It reveals how a president and other powerful individuals can abuse young girls, and nobody takes action. Are we really supposed to believe this is a hoax? It is disgusting. Story 5. Nothing surprises me about the United States anymore. It is like a literal sitcom. People joke and say, "What is going on in the United States today?" As if it is a show. Story 6. Aussie here. Difficult to understand what the scandal actually is. Not sure what details about Donald Trump were not already clear 20 years ago. Impressed by how much United States media can muddy the waters. Disappointed that this was needed for so many to question his leadership value, as opposed to, God, where do I start? Difficult to be hopeful this will lead to any accountability, since the political and executive divide has been exposed as not concrete. Like many countries, a real kick in the butt for us to think independently about our geopolitical position. We have been way too complacent relying on American stability. This is especially scary for us, as being a subsidiary is all our country has ever known since colonization. Story 7. The President of the United States of America is a rapist, a pedophile, a con man, an adulterer, a liar, and a convicted felon. It should not matter where you are from or what side you lean politically. We have a predator running the United States. It is disgusting and embarrassing. Story 8. It is a terrible event, but not surprising in America. I think we are becoming numb to the corrupt and shocking news every day. The bigger concern is to prevent this from spreading to other countries. Story 9. We are hopeful that this will lead to the end of Donald J. Trump, even if not through legal mechanisms. Story 10. Anyone who has been paying attention to politics and Jeffrey Epstein has known this since 2019. Donald Trump has lied his way out of many scandals. I feel hopeless that he will face any repercussions from this. His base will most likely accept any excuse he gives for this. Story 11. We are shocked that no one seems to be doing anything about it. Everyone knows Donald Trump is involved. There is solid proof he was close friends with the individual. Yet nothing is happening, and everyone seems to be shrugging their shoulders. Why have there not been protests? Why has there not been real, tangible outrage? The overall sentiment is one of overwhelming disbelief that nothing is being done about it. Story 12. I am in Norway. The scandal isn't Jeffrey Epstein. The scandal isn't Donald Trump. Those are symptoms. The scandal is America. Watching the deterioration of the United States of America is like watching your once beloved Uncle Sam succumb to a methamphetamine addiction. The rest of the family kind of stands around with horrified faces whispering, "What the hell?" to each other while he behaves inappropriately over the dining table. The Epstein case should have been resolved years ago with prosecutions and retributions, but the political and justice systems are so corrupted that corruption has become a normal state of affairs. You tolerate behavior that would justify revolutions in other countries, most likely because you are all too impaired from generations of lead poisoning and opioid addictions, as well as the erosion of critical thinking, adult education, and basic human empathy due to oversaturation of toxic media content and the relentless hypercapitalist assault on social norms and human values, where celebrity and prosperity overshadow dignity and truth. That is where Donald Trump finds his base. It is why he is so successful and can violate every legal, social, ethical, and moral norm. You have a pedophile as a leader because you threw all that away, and now he is what you deserve, America. Poor Uncle Sam. Won't he just die already? Can't someone put him out of his misery? Story 13. It is a scandal, but only in that it confirms that the billionaire class has always been above the laws and morals of the rest of us. We do not idolize them in the way the United States of America seems to. Story 14. We are worried that if the democracy that you have been trying to promote everywhere else for so long produces unaccountable and corrupt individuals like this, perhaps you have focused too much on exporting it rather than fixing it. Story 15. In the United Kingdom, people do not really talk about it here, which is kind of insane since one of our literal monarchies was legitimately implicated in the whole thing. Story 16. That Trump is a sexual predator. This has been known since before his first term when he literally said it on a hot microphone. Americans then voted him in and voted him in again because of promises like cheaper eggs, which later became more expensive. Story 17. United Kingdom here. Big deal. Any new developments make the main news. General sentiment is that Donald Trump is a pedophile, and we are not surprised. What were you thinking, America? Story 18. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that request. Story 19. I'd imagine a lot of the world is collectively screaming, what is it going to take for you to depose this person and all of his supporters? They're violating your precious freedoms, your unstoppable economy, your institutions, your natural splendor, your reputation with friends and foes alike. Anyone who has paid attention over the past decade already knew he has been involved in horrific crimes against children. Every accusation is a confession for him and his allies. He used the concept of establishment and deep state pedophiles as a rallying cry to grow and mobilize his base for so long. He mishandled the document release, mishandled it badly. Somehow, this could be the one thing that breaks the inexplicable spell he has on his performatively hypermasculine base who preach liberty and rugged individualism. Not the bizarre orange makeup and signs of cognitive decline. Not the terror squads apprehending people. Not the skyrocketing cost of living. Not your dignity and health being tied to a boss who could take away those innate rights at will. Not the emasculating turnaround efforts. Make it stop. Make it stop. Make it stop. For goodness sake, what are you all waiting for? The entire world has been a living nightmare, and we have much bigger existential threats around the corner we need to tackle together. You and us, hand in hand. Remove these criminals from power and put them in prison already, the Trumps, Vance, Steve Miller, Peter Thiel, and the other tech billionaires who paid and supported these offenders. For a group of brave revolutionaries, you really are acting like beaten down, subservient people. Be the America we all believed you could be. Seize the opportunity. Do not let this opportunity pass. Press this issue every day, every hour. Give no quarter. Accept no distraction. Hold his feet to the fire. Afraid. Story 20. It is not Epstein who is the scandal. It is the Olympic-level mental gymnastics that American conservatives are performing to deny that Donald Trump is guilty that is scandalous. Story 21. Everyone knows Donald J. Trump behaved inappropriately with young girls. The sentiment around me is one of bemusement that it took this long for Make America Great Again supporters to catch up. Story 22. I think we are more surprised that anyone believed Donald Trump would release the records in the first place. I am a little surprised about how volatile it has become for many in the Make America Great Again base, but pleased. We are highly disappointed in your Republican Congress. I lean more right than left, but I would never support this nonsense. Story 23. It seems like the United States of America, one of the most powerful nations on earth, is at a tipping point. You either stop this disturbing shift toward autocracy, or you accept it. If this does not bring Donald Trump down, you are finished, I am afraid. Story 24. It is not that in all countries people talk about Jeffrey Epstein on a daily basis, but when the topic arises, the reaction is usually one of disgust and disbelief at the impunity that this entire circle had. Story 25. I feel like we are mostly eating popcorn watching former President Donald Trump try to weasel his way out of a conspiracy theory he was simultaneously promoting while being at the center of it. Story 26. I am Brazilian and there are various comments and memes, but it is hard to pay attention when we are dealing with Donald Trump's attempted blackmail and interference. The scandal here is far behind issues like the 50% tax, the attempt to pardon a fascist who attempted a coup d'etat, and attacks on our financial and production systems. However, it is quite well reported. Story 27. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is holding raids. There is no longer a separation of powers. A billionaire was unleashed on the administrative state. Florida hosts one of the most inhumane detention centers in modern history. Against that background, the Epstein files do not rank highly. We already knew Donald Trump associated with Epstein. Story 28. It is not, but we realize more and more that your country's elites are corrupt and vile, and your culture is not worth consuming. Story 29. We need to take strong action against all child predators. This is a serious issue. Some people who claim to protect children are blocking progress. They oppose drag queens but ignore cases of abuse by trusted individuals. Not everyone is like that. This is an important matter. We do not want it hidden or ignored. Story 30. Are you referring to the person with a spray tan who is currently manipulating the stock market by using tariff threats? Story 31. Yes, it is a huge deal in my opinion. Many young girls were victimized, and until every single person faces justice, it is not over. I am conservative, so even if it involves Donald Trump, I do not care. Young women need to be protected, and we deserve to know everything. Story 32. Every time I go to the grocery store, I hear someone talking about it. It is absolutely not going away. Story 33. I imagine that the British people care a great deal about the Epstein files. Prince Andrew has been implicated and has already been caught lying about his relationship with the pedophile pimp. Story 34. Yes, it is a concern that the President of the United States is likely very evil, but we have watched you continue to do nothing about him for years in scandal after scandal. The general sentiment here is that it is just another one of his scandals that will be swept under the rug as usual. Call us when you actually do something about it. Story 35. United Kingdom here. The general sentiment is that this is just another ghastly reminder of why it was absurd that Donald Trump would be elected at all, never mind re-elected after Americans had a taste of what he was like the first time around. Watching America since Donald Trump's arrival has been like helplessly watching a beloved but somewhat eccentric larger cousin start doing meth and cheerfully develop a habit of recreationally shooting themselves in the foot. Story 36. Canadians are watching closely and wondering why Americans would vote for a person accused of serious crimes. Story 37. I do not know if this is a general observation, but my friends and I think we are witnessing the fall of the United States. This will either end in civil war, world war, or separation of the states. Story 38. Swiss. We laughed and joked when he ran for president the first time. Now it is just sad and scary to see how easily indoctrinated America truly is. Also, there hasn't been a reputable or interesting runner-up since Barack Obama. Instead, you just re-elect this corrupt man and his associates, let him instigate war in Ukraine, saying, "We got your back," and then blaming Volodymyr Zelensky in his face for risking lives in Israel. Their tactics are obviously very inspired by some event that happened on September 11th. Don't you all think? We are not happy and not just standing by. Your bad decisions are affecting our economy too. We are happy, though, to have an ocean between you and us nonetheless. Sorry, Canada. Story 39. Aside from empathy with victims, the current issue is that Donald Trump is viewed as a detriment to the world at large. All of his distractions aimed to divert attention from Epstein files have real-world implications. We are surprised that half the voting population in the United States could so easily have their latent dislike for Latin Americans manipulated into votes for someone who is clearly devoid of any ethics. Story 40. Not really a big deal, as it is just another data point in the ongoing decline of the United States. Anyone with a brain knows that Donald Trump is implicated in this and much more. Anyone who has been paying attention over the last decade or two knows that he will not face any consequences. If anything, his getting away with this will only further embolden him and the entire ultra-conservative movement. Their supporters will also move further away from holding their leaders accountable for anything. Story 41. Norway here, though of course I cannot represent the total population. Right now, many Norwegians are on holiday, so there is not much everyday gossip, but I doubt this would do much. Most people I know already consider your president to be some flavor. of evil and shameless. So this is just another feather in his proverbial hat of sin. I think many people have come to terms with the fact that Americans do things very differently and have a different set of morals and standards than us, people I am close with. Story 42. Australian here. Very important. Extremely pivotal as the breakdown of the American empire collapses. The veil has been lifted. Trump and Epstein fast-tracked that. We can see what sort of values and ideologies America has been built on. Burn it all to the ground, I say. You need to start fresh. It shows how dark and disturbing history is and that the country has been absolutely blackmailed. Story 43. I think most of us are curious about why Americans are comfortable enough with this information to talk about it but not actually take any action. Story 44. It is a big deal because everyone talks about it and thinks it is bad. Everyone wants the lists to be released. However, day to day, it does not affect anything in our lives. Story 45. It seems to be the issue that is finally causing some supporters of Donald Trump to reconsider their support for him. I am not sure why, because the Republican Party has always been indifferent to sexual assault against women and girls. However, something appeared to have changed this time. Story 46. Not really, because we Canadians do not need a forensic assessment to know that if it walks like a pedophile, talks like a pedophile, associates with other pedophiles, and actively suppresses evidence of being a pedophile, it is a pedophile. Has he admitted to peeping on Miss America contestants? Yes. Has he done it with the junior Miss America contestants who are under 18? Yes. Has he had a series of complaints, civil lawsuits, and hush-money scandals involving sexual assault? Yes. Does he gloat about grabbing women by their private parts whether they like it or not? Yes. So what does the Epstein file say that we do not already know? He wrote a birthday card with his signature as pubic hair on a nude woman? Who cares when he admits to molesting women, ideally young ones, and knowing all that, Americans still voted for him? Story 47. I think cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, ending birthright citizenship, turning immigration and customs enforcement into a well-funded military, the declining mortality rate, lack of access to health care, low wages, a broken job market, climate change, unaffordable housing, concentration camps, and the complicity of the Supreme Court are still weighing on me more these days. Story 48. The general sentiment is that we are witnessing the rapid decline of the United States of America. The Epstein files are just a detail. You are finished. Story 49. The rest of the world is not uncertain about whether Donald Trump is a bad person. America is alone in this delusion. Story 50. You all lost me at grab them by the genitals. That should have been the end of the whole thing. That and the 25 public accusations of rape, groping, and so on. And Stormy Daniels is not even part of that. The man had sex with a porn star while having a 1-year-old child at home, tried to hush it up, went to trial and was found guilty. Yet 31 million women voted for him. America is just a lost cause. These people are crazy. Not a single person should have voted for that individual. I don't actually understand why the Jeffrey Epstein matter is a big deal, since all the other issues didn't prevent people from voting for him. Story 51. A bit surprised this became important. I assumed by now everyone knows he is a convicted sex offender, friend of Jeffrey Epstein, vindictive dishonest conman, racist would-be dictator who bankrupted most business endeavors. Story 52. At this point, meh, whatever. Just another atrocity on top of every other horrendous thing happening across the entire globe. Outrage fatigue is real. Too many serious problems need fixing. Story 53. The sentiment is that Jeffrey Epstein and his associates represent pure power corrupted and personified by evil. It is bizarre that you have a president who is still widely supported, although obviously implicated in this. Story 54. It is a big deal because it has angered the people it would have always angered. Make America Great Again has already either moved past it and fallen back in line, or we're ignoring its existence from the start. Most of how it has angered us is that sentiment of, it should have been the smoking gun. But it is also the 300th smoking gun since Donald Trump's first presidency, so it is desensitized and does not actually mean anything. Story 55. I am from Russia and honestly, I have never heard about this scandal before. It was not covered here at all. But seriously, what is wrong with people who touch minors? They are children. How can anyone even think like that? It is disgusting. Story 56. As an Australian, I find the obsession with Epstein's list myopic, given that survivors can provide accounts of who his clients were. At the same time, Epstein had cameras throughout his houses where children were abused by his clients. His power over them was not because their names were on a list, but because he had tapes to blackmail every one of them. Yet none of those tapes have surfaced, and no survivor has recently been asked to fill in that so-called list. That silence is deafening. Story 57. I live in southern Quebec. I do not follow the mainstream media or others, only a few. I do not hear people talking about it. Anyway, those Make America Great Again supporters are in a cult. It will not change anything even if Donald Trump did unpleasant things. Story 58. I am honestly surprised that people are surprised about all of this. This is all fairly old news, and the fact that people are finally reacting to it confirms that most individuals are severely lacking in intelligence. Story 59. If I cannot get a job without a background check, he should not be the president without releasing the files. He already has immunity while in office. It is unacceptable. Story 60. I would think there will be some very prominent people on many shores. The whole world should also be pressuring its release. Story 61. General consensus is all perpetrators of child exploitation should face justice. Fascism is wrong, and we do not appreciate threats of annexation from someone with poor personal hygiene. Americans need to reconsider and stand up for their rights against their corrupt regime. Sincerely, a Canadian. Story 62. We find it amazing that when a crime is committed by a politician in the United States, the first question asked by the public is, are they Democrats or Republicans? We are transfixed by the willingness of people to protect their own, even from the most terrible crimes. Story 63. General sentiment is that Donald Trump is a pedophile, and members of the Republican Party are actively obstructing any attempt to publish the evidence that Donald Trump is a pedophile. Also, Donald Trump is a pedophile. Story 64. I am a New Zealander, and it is equally entertaining, disgusting, scary, and a little infuriating that someone can cause such chaos and division in a so-called modern era of society. However, if political 1990s rap taught me anything, it is that this was already happening and was only going to get worse. Story 65. I do not like grown men who victimize children. I also do not like when a large portion of the population of the country that once stood for justice and freedom decides to support pedophilia. So yes, it is a big deal. Story 66. It is only a big deal because of how significant it is in America. Regarding politicians and celebrities exploiting girls, if someone with that kind of money and power wishes to do so, unfortunately, there will always be someone else willing to provide the services. First, because these people pay large sums in hush money compared to normal human trafficking, and second, because by indulging these people in their unethical desires, someone gains leverage over all of them. Story 67. Most politicians are bored wealthy individuals who have become careless about hiding their actions, with the Epstein case being the most egregious example. Story 68. We did not elect his best friend as president. Personally, I am just watching the chaotic situation the United States has become with a bowl of popcorn. Story 69. All the fellow Canadians I speak to know that Donald Trump is a dishonest individual and a convicted criminal. It is more of the same. I can think of no worse person even before any information comes out. Story 70. It should be a worldwide big deal since Jeffrey Epstein facilitated rape and pedophilia globally. I believe every country would want to know if people in positions of power are pedophiles. Story 71. It is mostly seen as strange that people are shocked, as if they had no idea before recently. We all know he is a pedophile and a rapist. This has been known for years and is not breaking news. Contact me when someone actually takes action about it. Story 72. I do not care about non-Americans with respect to this case. This is a completely American disaster. It needs to be fully exposed for whatever it was and continues to be. American billionaire corruption. Story 73. The people in power do not seem to care. The regular people want to take action against the people in power. Story 74. Canadian here, so we are hearing a lot about it. It seems pretty obvious that he is on the list, and everything coming out of the White House is an attempt at distraction. I have no respect for the spineless thumb-sitters in the grand old party. Story 75. In this monkey's opinion, the scandal is actually about two things. One is the fact that a sitting United States president may have taken part in deplorable, inhumane activities. The second scandal is about how even the most loyal supporters of Donald Trump are being forced to choose, while their base watches in real time. There is a thread on Reddit about a woman watching her husband come to terms with the fact that not only is Donald Trump lying about this issue, but he is also likely the person that all these pedophile investigators have been searching for. Edit. I was tired when I posted. This did not make much sense in the morning, so I reworded it. Story 76. Yes. Good Lord. It is all over the place. I live in Trump County, 85% pro, a very Southern Baptist, evangelical, and military area. Lots of military. Over the past few days, I've seen some long-time Make America Great Again supporters remove flags, signs, and the like on my morning and evening commute. I've seen the faintest outline of where a FJB or Donald John Trump is my daddy sticker had been. I opened up my helmet visor to breathe free air once again. I have hope. Like old Dylan said, the times they are changing. Oh, by the way, it is strictly forbidden to even mention his name in polite company, professional relationships, and the like. I'm in business. I meet with multiple salespeople from all over the United States, both on Zoom and in person. We all avoid his name like the plague. Story 77. It is ironic to see how the civilized world cannot take action against obvious crimes committed by their leaders. Story 78. I mean, it is not like it is new information. There have been many pictures released over the past 30 years of the two hanging out together like friends. Story 79. You put a felon billionaire in as president. Therefore, you are not surprised. Your country is in a state of complete demoralization, and you may not even be aware of it. Story 80. Watching from Australia. It seems clear that your president is guilty. Now, I am just watching to see how broken the United States of America is. If this does not topple him, maybe you are heading into full authoritarianism. Unfortunately, we all have to watch because the United States of America impacts the rest of us. Story 81. Here we are confused because a victim came forward in 2016, so we wonder, how was that not the final straw that ended his first campaign? Are Americans so unaware that they forgot about it until enough supporters were upset about losing Medicaid and might now be willing to accept the truth? Because this is very strange. Story 82. Having watched Donald Trump convince the angry masses that there is an elite pedophile ring running the government, and now seeing him being brought down for being part of that ring, is a fascinating experience. The stupidity involved in making such accusations after being involved for over 20 years is staggering. Trump is actually much less intelligent than we thought he was. The whole situation is like watching the entire United States Air Force crash into the United States Army's weapons cache at the same time, in slow motion. The world generally does not like con men, abusers, rapists, or pedophiles. With this man representing all of the above, I think we can all just sit back and watch it unfold. And for the first time ever, be proud of Rupert Murdoch. Story 83. I see die-hard Donald Trump supporters now turning against him. That is a huge deal. After all he has done, is this the straw? Story 84. It's a huge deal. The image that the United States had has been severely damaged, and it will not recover for a long time because people complicit in letting this happen will remain influential for a while. You can have many opinions on immigration and foreign policy, but normal people draw the line at harming children and protecting pedophiles at the very least. Story 85. Swede here. I am pretty confident that a majority of Swedes have never even heard about Epstein or the files, but we all know that Donald Trump is an insane liar, a crazy, unhinged lunatic who is drunk on power. Add pedophile to that list and nobody would be surprised. Story 86. Yes, it's a big deal. We already know he is involved, we just want the list released. He has already been found guilty of criminal contempt of court. He is a pedophile. I am not sure why it does not bother his supporters, though. Story 87. As a Canadian, we are embarrassed for you. Even before the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, the issues with the Miss Universe contestants, the locker room talk, the idiotic remarks, his stance on Russia, and mishandling of other issues, it has been bad news. Epstein is bad, yes, but let's be honest, it is consistent with his brand. Story 88. I think what happens where you are, for better or worse, does tend to filter to the rest of the world. The likelihood is that someone that powerful would have influence extending across nations. In the United Kingdom, we had the Seville scandal, a similarly vile individual who cozied up to both senior politicians and royalty alike, including our current monarch, while being shielded by the apparatus of the state. The only surprise to me at this point is that the two individuals do not appear to be linked or have crossed paths. Story 89. It is a big deal because many people are on that list and pedophiles and sex traffickers are widely disliked. However, Trump's actions have made this situation worse by promising to release such a historic document, then reversing his position and attempting to deceive everyone. This behavior makes it more difficult because he is the person we will have to work with going forward. Story 90. I am a New Zealander living in Australia, and it has been all over the newspapers I read. I detest Donald Trump's policies, and if he is involved in the files and is a pedophile, then I hope things bring his career to an end. Story 91. I would not look at tomorrow's cover of The National, a Scottish newspaper, about Donald Trump's visit to Scotland. They call him a few names. Story 92. As a Canadian, I am more than happy to see the President of the United States bogged down in scandal. Every minute spent on canceling Colbert, fighting with Rosie O'Donnell, or deflecting questions about Epstein keeps him too busy to lay his grubby orange hands on my country. The president fighting with celebrities, reporters, and late-night talk shows is better for everybody. Story 93. From where I am sitting in Canada, at least regarding Donald Trump, it seems blatantly obvious that there is enough evidence to make it clear he is a rapist. Given the circumstantial evidence as well as his character, it seems obvious that he is on the list. Why does it make a difference at this point? Haven't people seen the prior evidence and still voted for him twice? Story 94. Canadians are fairly split. Half realize that many individuals in the upper levels of American government, both Democratic and Republican, were deeply associated with Epstein and are corrupt, horrible people. The other half pretty much forgot overnight that Clinton, along with other Democrats, were on the list and think it is just Republican politicians who are the problem because that is what Apple News tells them. It is rough. I say that as a staunch Carney supporter. Story 95. I am from China, and some of us, like my father, used to believe that the United States of America is the beacon of democracy, and China could be better if the system changed. Year after year, we began to question if this was true. Someone like Donald Trump was elected while the election resembled a real-life drama show. He promised everything, like exposing the Epstein files, but actually did nothing. The Build Back Better bill is another issue. Those who elected him are often the ones who suffer the most. When democracy does not truly represent the people, why does it matter? I hope the system can correct itself. It is easier for me to adapt to reality because I am young and educated, but my father might live in pain seeing his beliefs vanish into thin air. Story 96. Most people do not care as it does not directly impact them. That being said, we all agree any child abuser deserves to be punished for a long time. But we are all here watching the circus that is United States political whataboutism unfold. Story 97. As a non-American, I am looking forward to riots and civil unrest. You have been the mouthpiece of the world for my entire life, and when injustice is happening in your own backyard, there is silence. Where are the guns? Where are the revolutions you so calmly tell other countries and nations to have? Where are the protests and what are the results? Literally nothing. I see article after article about pedophile protection, yet the United States will fail to answer a simple question. Story 98. We already know half of your politicians are involved in misconduct. We are just surprised that you are making this a Democrat versus Republican issue since both parties had the list and did not publish it. Story 99. It is not as big of a deal as it should be. Human trafficking and child exploitation operation involving prominent names in politics and business. The people involved are at great risk if the truth comes out, so they are desperately trying to deceive an entire country. Story 100. The sentiment is that your president is a dishonest person, and we hope you manage to remove him from office. Story 101. We have all known since day one that Donald Trump was a dangerous individual. No one understands why it took so long. Story 102. Donald Trump is the biggest threat to the world right now. I do not care about Jeffrey Epstein, but we need something to take down that harmful individual to stop the damage from happening. Story 103. In Britain, we do not care as much about Jeffrey Epstein. The whole scandal is not making headlines at the moment as it is in the United States. If it does fully break out here, it will probably focus more on Prince Andrew's actions, which many already disapprove of. Story 104. The general sentiment is that the United States is a disaster, being brought down and destroying its reputation by a corrupt supporter who ran for a second term to avoid going to jail. The first time around, the United States was a laughingstock. Now there is a sense of pity and, on an international level, a degree of betrayal. There is a reason that opposing Donald Trump was a decisive winning factor in Canadian and Australian elections. Story 105. Most people do not care about the matter unless there are prominent individuals from their country included in the Epstein list if it is ever released. Story 106. England leadership is probably sweating. Who did Philip take to these parties? That is, of course, assuming they were not already in the know. Story 107. Yes, Prince Andrew is not American. However, Donald Trump is going to visit his brother, King Charles, in September. Story 108. Honestly, what difference would this make to us outside the United States of America? We already know he is a pedophile among many other negative titles. The important thing is whether this will affect his millions of American voters, which it will not. In short, non-Americans know he is a slimy, scummy person. It is the Americans who keep him around. Story 109. They should. We travel around the world preaching that countries do not respect women and their rights, while we blatantly cover up child rapists and possibly elected one as president. Story 110. Weak men create harsh times. You are in this stage now, and it is sad to see the downfall of a once great nation, a people all around the world saw as a beacon of hope and freedom. Story 111. We will forget all about it and move on to something else in a month or two. That is how we are with everything. Story 112. It's only a big deal because both sides of the political spectrum are expecting to fully weaponize the results of the investigation against the other side. But truthfully, our country lets these people off the hook all the time for this behavior. Michael Jackson is still played on the radio every single day. It feels like we are trapped in a never-ending outrage cycle where nothing ever happens. Story 113. The sentiment was, I don't care if Hillary Clinton or anyone else is on the list. We want it released. And everyone responded, yeah. Then it was revealed that Donald Trump was on the list. And now half of the country is asking, why do you care? Story 114. It is absurd. Our prime minister would have been punished severely in a public square just for what the former president did to your social welfare system, the one that is not for billionaires. Story 115. From Australia, the news is ironic given the horrific subject. He was arrested. Due to incompetent jail staff, he died. He had a list. We have the list and are reviewing it. Several years later, there is no list. Wait, there is a list. It sounds like a group of people clucking with no idea what they are doing. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Justice, and government appear incompetent and ineffective. Story 116. My sentiment is that many of my friends are becoming fathers right now, and it makes me imagine myself in that role as well. I wonder if I will be a dad to a little girl one day, and if that happens, she will be the sweetest. However, if anyone dares to harm her in any way, my protective instincts will activate. One must truly not have loved a single day of their life to do such harm. Regarding the general sentiment in my area, we believe that the American people elected the worst individual possible to the most prestigious position in the country, and we are not surprised by that outcome. Story 117. Make America Great Again has and will continue to ignore and play down anything related to Donald Trump. He truly could commit murder in Times Square and they would not care. He is a convicted rapist, they do not care. He brags about grabbing women by their genitals, they do not care. He makes sexualized comments about his teenage daughter. They do not care. There are dozens of photos and videos of him with Jeffrey Epstein, going on and on about how much he loves the man. They do not care. The Make America Great Again world only cares that he continues to spout his hypermacho male and white power rhetoric. He controls every Republican legislator and judge by their genitals, and they continue to bow to him. It is disgusting. Many of us do care, but the Republican Party is running the country like a Donald Trump-loving clown show. All that America used to say that we believed in freedom, equality, democracy, dignity, leadership, has been trashed by these horrible anti-democratic fools. We brought this on ourselves, or at least some of us did. I am so disgusted by what has become of our country, our ideals, and our leadership in the world. What a shameful embarrassment we have become. Story 118. I would love to see the list released with his name on it. Then, everyone could see what a horrifically terrible person he is, and perhaps something could be done about it. Story 119. He is a child molester. Lock him up in the general population and watch his fellow inmates administer justice. Story 120. We already knew Donald Trump is a problematic figure. It is good to see that at least one of his many actions has finally had some negative effect on him. His pro-Russian politics and huge ego while holding power are more concerning to the safety of the world, but nobody is going to hold him accountable for that. Story 121. Not a fan of sexual assault, not a fan of assaulting minors, not a fan of people getting away with such crimes, but not convinced it will hurt Donald Trump in the slightest. Also not a fan of seeing the United States descend into utter chaos and destruction, but that ship has long sailed, so there you go. Story 122. It is not a big deal in the same way as it seems to be in the United States, where it matters to people to see the secret group exposed. However, it is still significant because it could bring down Donald Trump, and many people are hoping for that to happen. It is also all over the media 24/7, so it is hard to ignore. I would guess that 99% of non-pedophile humans strongly dislike pedophiles and want to see them punished. Story 123. The bigger issue is whether the United States is capable of regulating itself. We are not expecting anything exceptional here. We will settle for common sense. People who abuse underage girls are monstrous. Having unregulated nuclear power led by such people is calamitous. Story 124. You are moving into the Idiocracy movie timeline. I am in Canada, so maybe I am just confused because our weather is different. Why does he paint his face orange? You can tell around his eyes he has translucent old man skin. Why does he paint his face? Story 125. Yes, and furthermore, anything to do with Donald Trump is big news internationally for various reasons, such as what has that person done this time? Yes, that is racism, and this is going to harm our economy and security. Most importantly, Donald Trump attracts attention and increases engagement. Jeffrey Epstein was internationally newsworthy on its own because of international sex trafficking, but also because of the connection to Donald Trump. Story 126. In Canada, I think it was more of a scandal when Jeffrey Epstein's best friend became president, and then it happened again. Story 127. Anybody on that list who is proven to be a child rapist is guilty and deserves the full brunt of the law. No question. This is from a Canadian. Story 128. The wealthy break the law without remorse everywhere. We should send a message that we will not tolerate it anymore. Story 129. I think the more fascinating thing to people outside of the United States is how difficult things appear to be there. Just when we think it cannot get any worse, it goes off a cliff. For many, it is borderline comical, but there is also a sense of worry. The United States seems to be on a dark path. Epstein is just one scandal among many that seems to be brushed off with ease. Story 130. The President of the United States, as the self-proclaimed most powerful nation in the world, being a pedophile is a big deal. Laws made by the United States influence the rest of the world. The extreme right-wing sentiment spread via media is emboldening these people worldwide. Story 131. What is the Epstein file? Trump dominating international news covers most headlines in other countries. However, the Epstein file is not a bigger deal than tariffs or ongoing wars for other countries. They all knew he was an immoral bully during his first term, and none of the crimes he committed would be surprising or newsworthy. Story 132. A mix of utter disgust and annoyance that your American dysfunction and depravity is in the news all the time. Story 133. From New Zealand. It looks really bad for the United States of America. Donald Trump makes you look more ridiculous every week. We have a few big fans, but in general, the United States of America has gone from world leaders to a punchline. Story 134. Most people do not care. It is the United States problem that they have rapists and child molesters running the country. Story 135. Not the Jeffrey Epstein scandal as such, but I was slightly surprised he got elected the first time. Properly surprised he managed to be elected a second time. I do not think fellow South Africans care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Story 136. Here in Central Europe, it is not a major issue, largely because it is not a European matter. Russia's genocide against Ukraine is a more significant topic, as well as former President Donald Trump's hostile tariffs. Trump acts like a Russian asset. His close association with Jeffrey Epstein and participation in questionable parties further highlight his unfitness for the presidency. It is fascinating how United States citizens voted for him twice. They must support him deeply. Story 137. I just checked if it is even talked about in our main newspapers and news outlets. It is, but does not take precedence over issues like market instability caused by tariffs, discussions on Israel and Ukraine. I have personally had to inform many people about the situation. My friends and I are more interested in finding out who else is implicated in these files. We all know Donald Trump is a pedophile and rapist, and his name appears frequently in the documents. It is much more important to discover who else is being protected and who else is being blackmailed. It would be very interesting to see if the Mossad or Israel in general is behind the whole situation. Apparently, many people are beginning to believe this, and I understand why. Half of our elected officials in Europe are submitting to Israel in a way that cannot be justified by money alone anymore. They are getting away with genocide while the representatives who should speak for us either remain silent or say we should carefully investigate these claims of genocide. I wonder what they have on them. Regarding the rest, I find everything happening in the United States deeply concerning. Institutions are being cleared out illegally of elected officials, functionaries, and others, and everyone is being illegally replaced by loyalist puppets. Donald Trump and his administration break the law and disrespect the Constitution daily. It is deeply concerning. This is the point at which genuine resistance begins. Story 138. Norway. A significant event receiving front-page coverage. General sentiment is disbelief that such a criminal ever gained access to the White House. Story 139. Every day a new scandal comes out of your country. We are all scandalized. We went from shocked to amused to curious about what is next. And now we are just tired. Please sort your situation out. Story 140. It shed light on how a group of wealthy men, including the President of the United States, are pedophiles, but only a small portion of English speakers truly care. Story 141. Brit here. It has been a major scandal for two reasons. One, Prince Andrew is involved. He was accused of abusing Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking victims, including teenagers, and evidence shows that Andrew maintained a friendship with Epstein even after Epstein was convicted of pedophilia. This led to Prince Andrew being completely shunned by the British public, banned from being a working royal, and met with public disapproval whenever he appears. Many are upset that he will never face real consequences for his actions. It is widely believed he is guilty and could provide valuable information to the authorities if he cooperated. 2. Donald Trump has been legally adjudicated as a rapist and has repeatedly admitted to committing other sex crimes, including sexually assaulting women because he claimed to be a star and entering changing rooms where women and girls were undressed. He was also accused of rape by his first wife, combined with his long-standing close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, whom he publicly supported during her trial for sex crimes. Many believe he was involved in raping teenagers. It would be more surprising if evidence showed he was not involved. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.